recording. Am I right there, Mr. Lyer? We're recording, and welcome to this year's first Huddle. Thanks so much for coming. I am your host, Mike Fondario, your local friendly neighborhood broker, and we're going to kick this season off of Huddle and start with a powerhouse review of the real estate purchase contract. And if you're not aware, that's sort of the core of what we do. So we're going to get really good at this thing. But before we begin, there's a few things I want to talk about. One of them is I'm sort of feeling like we need to freshen up our Huddle a little bit. So if anybody has any suggestions, you could throw them in the chat. We don't even need to necessarily talk about them here, though we can. I do have this sense that I want to freshen up Huddle in some way, shape, or form, add something to it. Not a complete reboot, but just, something fresh, exciting, something to think about and maybe take a slightly new direction. So if you've been thinking about that as well as I have, send me an email, send me a text, throw it in the chat. We can talk about it an hour later. Also, I've been debating this thing. We talk about forums quite a bit. Sort of what we're here for. And do you guys actually want me to share the form while I talk about it so you can read along, or is that a waste of time and sort of distracting? Feel free to unmute yourself or throw it in the chat. Do you want me to actually share the form? Steve says yes. Kimmy says share. All right, well, this seems like a resounding yes, share the form. Okay, yeah, no big deal, no big deal. Totally share the form. I just thought, that people may not be reading it and just sort of, and the people that are driving around aren't reading it anyway. But okay, we're going to share all those forms, continue doing what we do. And let's see. Steve says, I think it makes a difference when we read through it. Absolutely agree. And just so everybody knows, whenever I do share stuff on the screen, I kind of go out of my way to make sure I'm reading it all the way through for those that are driving and can't read the screen themselves. So, help people. Let's see, I do have one more thing to talk about before we get going. Is Dana on? Dana, are you with us? Ms. Crittlebaugh. And I'm going to take that as a no. Take that as a no. Dana, well, yeah, I'm not seeing Dana.
She looks like she's on. I don't know if she
just joined there, Mike.
Say again?
Yeah, she's.
Hi,
I think she's on.
Dana Crittlebaugh. Dana Crittlebaugh, are you with us?
I'm here. Sorry, I am on. Do you want me to say my little thing real quick before you guys get started then?
Yes, please, swing away.
So I was just going to tell everyone just some exciting news. We just got a physician loan available to us. So it's 100% financing up to $2 million. It has better payment terms for student loans. So that's one of the things that physicians look for a lot. A lot of times they have really high student loan payments, or maybe it doesn't show what their student loan payments are yet. So they don't necessarily qualify because of that. They are less strict on student loan repayment terms. And then they have no PMI. So up to $2 million, zero down with no PMI. So pretty much for any of the physicians who are just getting out of residency, they don't have any money down yet, who just want to go buy a $2 million home, because why wouldn't you? You could get 100% financing and they're really great terms. So if you have anyone who would be looking for something like this or has any questions on it, I'd love to talk to them and see what we can do for them. And that's it.
All right. Thanks so much, Dana. You heard it here first. $2 million, no money down. Swing away.
I know. And it's down to a 680 credit score. So it does have flexibility on credit scores. If they're at 680, it only goes up to 1.5 with zero money down. If they're above 720, it goes up to 2 million with zero down. So just some fun information for you for any of your clients who are looking for something like that. It is a super good program. We used to see them a lot more and they kind of went away the last few years, but people are bringing them back out again. So we have a list of all the different types of physicians that qualify for it. One of them on there real quick is the PharmD, which is a pharmacist. I haven't seen those on that available list for a lot of physician loans. So it's kind of cool. If you have questions or have a client who has some type of doctorate, let me know, because we have a list of who qualifies for it.
Question in the chat for you, Dana. Are the rates different than a conventional loan?
They're not too different from the conventional loan. So it's not like extremely higher priced. They just came out with it. They just released it this week. So pricing's just getting on the website. So I'll keep checking pricing just to see where it's at as far as competitiveness.
Okay.
Dana, I also heard rumors that it covers some like EMTs and emergency physicians and things like that. I'm not sure where that line's drawn, but that would be interesting to see.
Yeah, it has like nurse anesthetist, so it has different type of I just printed out the 18 pages on it yesterday. It does allow for more than just the typical medical doctor. So I was thinking of putting together an email about it just for whoever wants it. So if you want to email on it, put your email in the chat and I'll forward out the terms, because it is a lot more than what I've seen in the past. So yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that email, that information warrants a company-wide email. Don't you, Kevin Larson?
I think so, but I don't want to send it out. I think that's Travis or one of the loan officers.
Yeah, we can send it out. I'll put together something and then we'll get it out to everybody, because it's definitely handy to have. So
For sure.
Let's connect on it, Dana. We'll send it out.
okay, sounds good. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks so much, Dana. All right. Thanks everybody for joining us. Let's go ahead and jump into the REPC. Man, it's been a minute since we talked about it. It's been a few years actually, and I don't know why it's been so long since we've really gone line by line on the REPC. The rumor mill has it that over the next 24 months we could have a new state-approved REPC. You did not hear that from me, but maybe it is officially out there that they're, redoing our REPC. But anyway, let's jump in. Let's share this. Let's get going. All righty, we should be good to go there, folks. I hope this looks familiar to you. Should be very familiar to you. But I will say that as much as I talk about the REPC and receive phone calls about the REPC and feel like I really, really know it, there's always this little space of insecurity that I'm like, is that what it really says? And most of the time it is what it really says. I've been doing this a long time. So I could feel good about that, but I think everybody has some sense that's similar to that. Like, we know it, but are we perfect at it? No, probably not that. So let's get there today. Ask any weird question about it. Ask all the different scenarios that may occur, that may cross your mind. That's what we're here today to do, is really deep dive into this thing. So let's get going. So we're going to read line by line. This is a legally binding real estate contract. Utah law requires real estate licensees to use this form. Buyer and seller, however, may agree to alter or delete its provisions or to use a different form. If you desire legal or tax advice, consult your attorney or tax advisor. So does that mean you can't negotiate a deal that isn't on the real estate purchase contract or any of the other Utah state approved forms? Because we do have buyers and sellers out there who, maybe high net worth individuals or corporations that prefer their own purchase contracts. How do we handle that? Because this specifically says it requires that we use this. What is that requirement? Where does it start and stop? I mean, I've done multiple deals with purchase contracts that aren't state approved forms. Did I break the law?
Builders have their own a lot too. That's the most
right.
common.
Yeah, that's right. Scott says Kevin knows. You know what? I know, but we could put that. We could put that in almost every question we're going to ask over the next day or two. Kevin does know.
No.
Without question, Kevin knows. The bottom line here is that we're licensed to fill out the blanks on this form, and we're licensed to produce this form. I think you need to give pause if your buyer wants to make an offer on a purchase contract or a purchase and sale agreement that is not state approved, and you need to call your broker and go, how should I navigate this? Because it's very likely if they have their own, they probably have some legal counsel that's filling this out for them. And you need to navigate it a slightly different way. It's not a huge deal, but just know that, we're licensed to use state approved forms. That's the only thing we're licensed to do. All right, moving on. On this day of this year,
Mike,
offer reference. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I just want to back up a minute here. Yes, they can use any form you want, but the seller may choose to say thank you very much for the offer on your, I don't know what, online form that you came up with off the internet. But the sellers oftentimes will counter back, thank you for the offer. We'll be happy to entertain the offer when put on the state approved form.
Because they had like
there actually was in the division newsletter a sanction against one of the agents who actually encouraged their client to actually just sign a form that did not protect the client. It was completely one-sided towards the buyer. So I think we kind of have a fiduciary duty to our seller in that particular case to have them seek legal counsel if they're going to sign a form and see if it adequately protects them, or counter back that it be put on the real estate purchase contract, which is designed by the division to protect both parties equally.
I'm so glad you're here, Kevin, because that's a wonderful point. I think the more common scenario for seeing purchase contracts that are not state approved is sort of the wholesaler, or we buy and flip homes, or maybe even an e-buyer of sorts. Those are the more common scenarios, and it just didn't cross my mind. But that's a great point, Kevin, in that we don't have to accept something, even if we like, let's say, the biggest item on the thing, the sales price. That doesn't mean we have to accept the rest of the terms of that purchase contract. So thanks for bringing that up. We can always force them to use the state approved form, or just simply reject. So thank you. All right. Offer reference date. The buyer offers to purchase from the seller the property described below and agrees to deliver no later than 4 calendar days after acceptance, as defined in section 23, an earnest money deposit in the amount of blank in the form of blank. After acceptance of the REPC by buyer and seller and receipt of the earnest money by the brokerage shall have 4 calendar days in which to deposit the earnest money into the brokerage real estate trust account. Actually, kind of a lot of things going on there. Where should we start? This isn't a big a deal anymore. It feels like taking possession of earnest money in 4 calendar days, because I think people are, generally defaulting to sending a wire, or, I remember in the old days when you'd write the offer, you'd pick up the check. I don't think we should be doing that anymore. I think if we do run into issues, and I do feel like every now and again I come across this, there's a buyer out there, no matter how many times we tell them you have to deposit your earnest money by this date, they take it as sort of a suggestion, like, hey, this is something we just do, and here's sort of the deadline. There's always, as long as you have possession of this in your hands, we're sort of okay. But then we run into the issue of getting it back to the brokerage and us depositing it. That usually is, if we're going to have any major problems, it can fall on there. But does anybody have any issues with this lately? It doesn't seem to be as big a thing as it once was. And we also, secondly, whose responsibility is it to inform the party when earnest money has not been deposited? This is a state law thing, and we ask this question all the time. So if you're a regular at the Huddle, you would know this. Whose responsibility is it to inform the parties that be that earnest money has not been received or deposited? Anyone? Bueller? Is it the buyer's agent's responsibility? The seller's agent's responsibility? Scott says, yeah. I don't know that that's super helpful, Scott, but I appreciate your contribution. We got a few answers coming in. Buyer's agents. Yeah, that's definitely the buyer's agent's responsibility. So if you do run into an issue where your client is, playing a little game or maybe getting cold feet or doing whatever they do with the earnest money, you need to remind them that you don't have a choice about whether or not you have to disclose this information. So if the deadline is 5 o'clock today and, we have less than 4 hours remaining till 5 o'clock, you need to tell them that at 5:01, I'm obligated by law to inform the other party that I don't have the earnest money. I don't have a choice in this. And if you don't tell the other party, you're complicit in this. So you don't want to be complicit. By the way, as a seller's agent, you're also required to make this phone call and confirm that they have it. You need to, I think we all kind of do that as instinct, but you can definitely get busy. You can definitely, blow past this date because we feel like, the both parties came to a really great conclusion and we signed contracts. And I feel good about this buyer as the listing agent, and we can kind of forget that at times. So, but it's still your responsibility to make those phone calls to ensure that they've received earnest money. So there you have it.
It also falls to the brokerage, Mike. If we know that we haven't received it and we know that it should be deposited this day, we'll call the buyer's agent and say, hey, we haven't received it. What's going on? Encourage them to actually do an extension to get it signed by the seller, because technically the deal is dead. The buyer's defaulted by not depositing it. And if you're in a multiple offer situation, oftentimes the seller will just cancel the offer where the earnest money didn't arrive and move to the next offer, and that's grounds for them to do that.
Yeah, really great point. Scott says, I'd say this is the top reason for default with wholesalers. It arrives less than 50% of the time. Yeah, it's a big deal. The one thing that I should remind everybody, if you represent somebody and the topic of earnest money comes up and there is some barrier to your client, the buyer, depositing their earnest money in 5 days, remember, we can just change that, right? We can just like Kevin said, if there was an issue, we could just do an addendum. But if we know ahead of time, we can just put an addendum in and say earnest money shall be deposited on whatever date we choose. So be aware of that. Yeah, and I would say that the topic of earnest money is always really interesting because people who aren't depositing it tend to downplay its importance. But remember, it's just more or less a sign of good faith that, yeah, I'm actually participating in this process. And if they can't do something that simple, then it should call into question their ability to perform on the contract or their commitment to even completing the contract. So it's not some small issue. It's a major issue, and you should jump right on it and protect your clients. Linda says, Lance, take Lance's earnest money class. Though I haven't taken Lance's earnest money class, it has been spoken with reverence, for quite some time. So I'm going to go ahead and encourage everybody to do that as well. Take Lance's earnest money class.
He calls it the power of earnest money.
Oh man, that's almost like a motivational class. Power of money.
It's like the stick in the transaction, how powerful it is to motivate people to do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, it's so true. It really is. And we have a few tools that help us negotiate that are really nice, and earnest money is almost always boils down to being the most powerful negotiating tool. So Scott says, when is the next class? I've never seen one. My guess is the next class is when we pressure Lance into giving it. So the pressure has not started.
We
But
really need to record it next time he does it and put it on the video learning on the intranet.
yeah, that's a great idea, actually. Get because it's a CE class, am I right, Linda? He does it as a CE class, not just like a regular class.
It is a CE class. One thing I like about it is when people say how much money to put, how much earnest money do I do? And some agents just do a percentage. Or here's this little amount.
Mhm.
That class really teaches you the why it's so important on either side for the seller and for the buyer. And so it's a great way to explain it to both sides, whether you're the buyer agent or the listing agent. I like it.
Very good. So while we're on the topic, how much money should you put down for earnest money? You can answer,
How much?
Linda, because I feel like you already know. Go ahead.
So how much is this, how badly do you want this property? And knowing that this is the ramification if there's a default on either side, you or them. How much do you want? How much can you, and how much are you willing to? How much do you feel comfortable with?
Yeah, I think that's it's really the simplest and easiest way to put it. Scott says as much as possible. In Salt Lake, 1 to 2%. Park City, 75%. Yeah, I think the amounts I think the amounts excuse me, are market driven to some extent, and also specific markets, geographic markets, not to mention the market itself, how it's moving along. But I think too, you should think about, if this deal does fail, regardless of which side you're on when you're considering earnest money or a counter of earnest money as a seller, as a listing agent, the earnest money is generally considered to be one of the things that is considered to be is a form of restitution for damages, right? It's a form of, like, I've been damaged in some way and I need to be compensated for that damage. So if the compensation for your damage, you anticipate it to be $1,000, I don't think you know what you potentially stand to lose, right? So $1,000, we just kind of know probably isn't enough to compensate us for our damages. Scott, in all caps, because he definitely believes in this as much as possible, and I feel very strongly about that. I feel like you said it twice with the all caps and then said, I feel very strongly about it. I sensed it with the all caps, Scott, for sure.
I'd be happy to elaborate on that more.
Yeah, take it away.
Well, first of all, I've had a lot of buyer defaults in the last year. One was even $50,000, and my seller said if it was 100, he would have fought for it. But I just have no confidence in the realtors in our state, and I expect a default, and I want to be a hero for my client. And I don't care if I'm representing a seller or a buyer. The odds of something going wrong are so high now. I want significant earnest money on the line.
Well, I think that's actually pretty fair. Let's think about this. In general, are the odds, well, this isn't it's just how you feel about this question. Are the odds that a deal will fail high, historically speaking? And the question you're gonna ask is, well, what are? Well, I would say that historically speaking, you're probably in any given market, probably 15 to 18% of all deals fail. So maybe not quite 1 in 4. There might be, as Scott says, upwards of 20% of the deals fail. So if 1 in 5 deals are failing, feels like a high probability of a failure rate, right? I mean, if your brakes on your car failed 1 out of every 5 times, you would say they fail at a high rate, right? So earnest money should always be at the top of your mind for protecting your client, because yeah, I consider 1 in 5 to be, I'm probably not framing the question, the statement right, but yeah, those are pretty high odds of failure, 1 in 5. So yeah, very
So
important.
I think we're including those who cancel on, inspection items,
Yep,
due
yep.
diligence, those types of things. I think the percent of those where the buyer actually just defaults after all their contingencies are over is quite a bit lower. But yeah, that's the fail rate is about 20%.
Yeah.
For people who cancel based off of due diligence and other things and retain their earnest money. It's that other percent that actually string the buyer along or the seller along to a few days before closing, and then they don't show up or they get a loan denial after the lender has assured us that everything's okay, where we really do need a larger amount of earnest money. I used, and when I was in Salt Lake, I would agree about 1% was the average. But if the buyer has the ability to do it, it's going to be credited towards your down payment anyway. Try to get it. And you can also indicate that, hey, we'll accept 1% initially, but after due diligence, we want it increased to a higher amount. And sometimes buyers are willing to do that, just put their money where their mouth is to stay in the contract and assure the seller this is really going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I feel like if there's some competition for the house, or we feel like the buyer is not expressing the type of motivation we think they should to buy this piece of property, asking for more earnest money after their deadlines seems really appropriate. And Kevin did answer your question, I think, Tara. But yeah, that's the 20% is like, just if you're under contract and it just doesn't close, that's what that means, and they could cancel for any number of reasons. So yeah, good topic.
Bill's got an interesting one right now. So this home is up in Stone Cliff. The sellers or the buyers have a property to sell out in Kayenta, and it's not selling, but they really, really wanted this house up in Stone Cliff. So they put down a large earnest money, and at this, it's non-refundable. And every month that their home doesn't sell in Kayenta, which weirdly enough, it's not selling, and it's gorgeous. If somebody wants to buy it, go buy it. It's amazing. Every month they are depositing 10 more thousand? So I think they're up to 100,000 right now.
Ooh.
Non-refundable. Each month it's non-refundable.
Hey, that's commitment. Doesn't matter, right? They're going to buy it eventually. So what does it matter? What does it matter?
Yeah, that is commitment. And that's showing that you're serious about buying it and not just tying up that home. But
maybe that seller should also be reducing his price each month by 10,000 to get it to sell.
go look at that house. I don't understand why it's not selling. It's beautiful, and I think the price is very fair. It's gorgeous. So I don't know. There's
all
something.
sorts of mysterious forces in effect.
Hey,
Doug?
Mike.
Yeah, go ahead.
That Doug's comment right there, that's true too. It's a big deposit is a risk to the sellers because some sellers decide they don't want to sell after the buyers are committed and they're moving forward and whatever. And if you remember under the default section, if the seller defaults, the not only receive the earnest money, but an amount equal to the earnest money. When I was in Salt Lake and whenever I was making an offer on an estate home where someone had died and there was like 5 children and they all were kind of, disposing of this property, I always advise my buyers to put a large earnest money down so that one of those kids didn't decide, hey, I want to buy the house. Let's try to kill this deal so that I can buy grandma's house, because that would keep the family moving forward when they realized that they were going to have to, return the 50,000, and then they're going to have to come up collectively the 50,000 to get rid of the buyer, so that one of them could actually buy the house or keep the family home.
Yeah, that's actually a really good scenario for that. I had a similar situation where I I represented a buyer of an apartment complex, and the seller, while we were negotiating, was sort of wishy-washy, and so I did advise a very large earnest money deposit, which I thought was very smart and very clever until 2 days before closing. He didn't think he could access his money, and anyway, it turned out great. But yeah, it cuts both ways. Earnest money does cut both ways.
Scott put a great example in the chat there too. You know, a multi-million-dollar home with a little earnest money, but they get an offer for 100,000 or $1 million more up here in Park City. It's real easy to return 25 plus an additional 25 and take the offer that's $100,000 to $200,000 more.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it protects your buyer from the seller too.
Yep, for sure. All right. Anybody have any additional comments on earnest money? I feel like we could do earnest money like every other huddle because it's kind of fun, kind of a fun subject. Let's move on though. Let's talk about the property description. Of course, we're going to put the address there, city, county, state, and tax ID. Any reference below to the property shall include the property described above together with the included items and water rights and shares, if any, referenced in section 1.1, 1.2, and 1.4. Hey, real quick question though. Let's say that we are buying a home that has, it's a home on a half acre, but there is an acre that's attached to it that they're selling and you want to buy it all at one. Can we just go ahead and throw 2 addresses or 2 tax IDs and attach them to this one purchase contract? I mean, is that something that we should be doing or can do, or it's smart, or it's a bad idea? What say you? What say you? Tara says question mark. Kimberly says bad idea.
Ding, 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 ding.
Why is it a bad? Why would you guess, Kimberly? It does look like you're getting your hair did at the moment, but you can, if you can unmute, tell us why you think that's a bad idea.
Well, yes, I am getting my hair done. So it's because that's not to put a whole nother new tax ID number in there. I just don't think you can lump them together like that. I don't know why I think it's a bad idea. I just think there's something wrong with it.
Gives you a bad vibe.
It gives me a bad vibe.
That's a decent answer. What say you, Kev?
Well, if it's like property, 2 residential properties, you could possibly do that. But it's very rare. If, like you say, it's a residence with a lot next to it. One, it should be done on the land REPC per our guidance and the licensing law that we follow to protect the buyer and seller in a land transaction. The other should be on a residential REPC. And it's absolutely necessary whenever there's a lender involved because they're going to underwrite those separately and they need separate contracts and they may require different amounts down on each one of them as well. But even on a cash transaction, are you really protecting both parties using the wrong REPC on the wrong type of land? Not a good idea.
Yeah, really great point, Kev. Now let's twist it up a little bit. Let's just say we're buying, 40 acres of raw land and it's broken up into 3 parcels and it's really one piece, but it just has 3 parcels ID. Does that change things at all?
You're fine to use 1 REPC and 3 tax IDs on it if it's all like type and it's all the same property because you're protecting buyer and seller through the clauses within that land purchase contract on all 3 parcels.
Okay. I think that's a really good dividing line there. It makes it clear why in some scenarios is acceptable and some scenarios is just not. So there you go. Great answer. Anybody have anything else they'd like to add on that? Yeah, that's a really good, can we go through the land purchase contract at some point? Tara, I think we're just going to go ahead and because you talked about that and we haven't gone through the land purchase contract in a very long time, we'll just add that to the next iteration of Huddle. Though at this pace, it doesn't feel like we'll get through the purchase contract until June. But hey, have no fear. We'll get through it. But we will do the land purchase contract. I think that's really important, and we haven't done it in quite some time. So let's try to power through at least a couple of these paragraphs. Included items. Unless excluded herein, this sale includes the following items if presently owned and in place on the property: plumbing, heating, air conditioning fixtures and equipment, solar panels, oven, ranges and hoods, cooktops, dishwashers, ceiling fans, water heaters, water softeners, light fixtures and bulbs, bathroom fixtures and bathroom mirrors, all window coverings, including curtains, drapery, rods, window blinds, and shutters, window and door screens, storm doors and windows, awnings, satellite dishes, all installed TV mounting brackets, all wall and ceiling mounted speakers, affixed carpets, automatic garage door openers and accompanying transmitters, security system, fencing, and any landscaping. That's before we go and start talking about this, let's just jump right to 1.2. The following, and this is other included items, the following items that are presently owned and in place on the property have been left for the convenience of the parties and are also included in this sale. And then we have some check boxes for washers, dryers, refrigerators, microwave ovens, and then we would check other and specify. This is pretty interesting, and I feel like at least 2 or 3 times a year, either at the final walkthrough or when a buyer takes possession, there's something that happens here. And I feel like it is on us as listing agents to go through this with our seller beforehand. And maybe it's a smart thing to just read right from 1.1 and 1.2 about what are included items. Because there are situations where they're like, hey, I love my chandelier. It's, my great grandma's chandelier, and it's going to be my chandelier for the rest of my life. I don't care what happens. That's okay. You just need to remove it now and replace it, right? There's all sorts of ways to overcome these things, but they need to be done at a listing appointment, in my opinion, and dealt with before something goes live and is shown at the public, because then that opens the door to issues, in my opinion. Anybody have anything they'd like to add to this? I mean, I think in general we all have a really good sense that if an item is affixed to the home, that it's considered to be part of the home and included in the sale.
Mike?
Take it away.
Mike?
Yes.
Oh, can you hear me?
I can. Take it away, Pete.
Hey, so I just had a quick comment. So when it comes to these items and whatnot, when it comes to real property and personal property, I was just dealing with a scenario where there's a home and a swimming pool, and obviously, nothing is really mentioned in regards to pool equipment as far as, your cleaning rods, your tubes and cleaning stuff. And it was brought up really, really interesting because you can get these cleaning Roombas for the pool that you drop in the pool, and they're like a Roomba vacuum. And so the perception was, well, all the pool equipment has to stay. And my seller's like, well, I'm taking him with me to my next house for my new pool. And it became a little bit of an issue. But and I had the same scenario with the same house with a bunch of theater stuff as far as that goes. So just being specific and clear as far as, because the buyers expected the theater seats, which were just couches, reclining couches, to actually stay in, because it's part of the theater room. It stays as the theater, and everything was supposed to be like included in it, not just the rack and all the equipment and everything. So it was interesting how it all broke out, because they're like, well, wait a minute, the theater couches aren't staying, or the pool Roombas are not staying with the pool with all the equipment, where these things technically could be personal property, but assumed because it's part of the pool that all the pool stuff stays, so to speak. Anyway, food for thought.
Yeah, that is really the perfect scenario to talk about the things that really can easily be interpreted to be part of the sale. And theater seating is kind of one of those, because you can imagine a situation in which that seating is really built in to maybe that specific room or something. So those are really good things to talk about in your listing appointments about what's going and what's not going, and deal with those specifically in the REPC, so you're not argue about them after you go under contract.
Mike, I don't want to go too deep here, but I think I've been to small claims court on every single item in 1.1 at one point in my career. And I've heard judges rule back and forth in different ways, and it's kind of a luck of the draw in small claims court. But the prevailing theory here is that if it's ambiguous, if it could be understood by the buyer one way, understood by the seller another way, and even the definition of what a fixture is can be ambiguous, put it in writing, because our laws that the judges are supposed to follow in these cases come from English common law that says that if there's an ambiguous term in the contract, the judge is supposed to rule against the person who wrote the contract. So the buyer loses. That when it comes to a tie, the judge looks at it and said, who wrote the contract? It was their responsibility to make it clear. So technically, if you're representing the buyer and you didn't make it clear in your contract that these items were to stay, you would most likely have your client lose in that situation. They would then turn to you and ask for a commissionectomy because you didn't represent them well.
Yeah, that's a really great point, Kev. I mean, when we talk about, it's a perfect point because all these things would end up in a small claim situation. That's the easiest way to resolve it. And for those who haven't been to small claims, you don't know what's going to happen. There is no clarity. The judges are not expert in the real estate purchase contract, and many times they're gonna look at it and read it for the first time, and just give their interpretation in a matter of seconds. So
and remember, the judges in small claims court are not real judges. They're called judges pro tem, meaning that they're in training to become a judge, and they may have not had hardly any real estate law in their background. It could be criminal or something else. So don't trust everything to go well in small claims court. I love what Linda said, when in doubt, write it out.
Yep.
And don't forget the personal property. Mark has warned us against this a lot. If you take a photograph of a table and there's things in the background, everything in that photo is included, unless there's writing next to the photo that includes only the table in this photograph is included. So be very specific.
Yeah, very good advice. Steve says, wrote fridge as included in the REPC. Sellers had in MLS that they had wanted to negotiate fridge. This happened at final walkthrough. Seller wanted to negotiate at the end.
No.
That's funny. No, we said we want to negotiate. Labels and serial numbers. Yeah. I mean, if it's important enough, you want those labels and serial numbers. And by the way, I think one of the most, while we're on refrigerators, it's very common for people to have more than one refrigerator. So if you just check included items, refrigerator, it does have an S on there, but do you feel confident that everybody just recognizes that that's plural and we can just go about our day? You shouldn't feel good about that. You should select other and identify them explicitly, and you can include serial numbers or their explicit locations or something. Anyway, make it clear to everybody what you're asking for. And refrigerators and I don't know, my in-laws, I don't know how many freezers they have, but I don't think you can count them on one hand. So yeah, you would want to be very specific about if you wanted their freezers.
I made that mistake once too, Mike. Sold a home near Cottonwood Mall. Had a white on white kitchen, brand new remodeled. It was gorgeous. And we just checked refrigerator. When we showed up to do the walkthrough, there was a green avocado fridge that was the beer fridge from the garage placed in the white on white kitchen. It took a couple of phone calls, but they brought it back.
Yeah, no one will notice that.
It was my mistake. I would have bought a new fridge if they hadn't.
People will try anything. They will try anything. All right, we'll go on to 1.3, excluded items. By the way, while we're talking about included items and excluded items, I feel like this habit has passed maybe our marketplace, but not completely. Is it ever okay to reference the MLS per MLS? I feel like I don't see that anymore, but it was a habit of people in the past for excluded items or included items. Rachel says, please no. Please no, don't do that. Yeah, that's the right answer. I don't think anybody does this anymore, but why reference something when we can just copy? You can literally copy and paste the stuff that is in the MLS that you want and put it in there and not reference anything. And it's just part of the contract. So
The MLS is an offer to leave those items,
yeah.
but it's not included unless it's been put into the contract.
Yeah, that's also another really great point that bad negotiators will try to fall back on. Well, I said it in the MLS. Yeah, well, you also said the purchase price was $1 million, and we didn't offer you that either. Yeah, as Steve says, MLS is just an advertisement. That is absolutely correct. All right, 1.4, water service. The purchase price for the property shall include all water rights, water shares, if any, that are the legal source for seller's current culinary water service and irrigation water service. Sorry about that. If any to the property, the water rights / shares will be conveyed or otherwise transferred to buyer at closing by applicable deed or legal instrument. The following water rights / shares, if applicable, are specifically excluded from this sale. That's really interesting. And I don't know that I've ever noticed that they give you the opportunity to exclude something from the sale. Like they went out of their way to exclude it from the sale because I guess they're including it. By the way, how does everybody, let's talk about this because this is a really important subject. How does everybody do their discovery on water rights and water shares? What is your process for discovery? Because we have to do some due diligence to find this stuff out, right? And sometimes it's obvious, like if you're shopping in certain parts of the state, there's going to be an automatic assumption that there's a well on the property or that there might be a water share or something included. But what is your strategy? Call the water company / provider. Tara says Division of Water Rights. And this is an important one, that it comes from the seller. So we're relying heavily on the seller in many instances.
And the seller disclosures.
Yeah, and seller's disclosures. And this just actually came to my attention recently. Do you think all sellers have really good understanding of what their water rights or shares are? I've only met a small handful of people who are really good at water, and everybody else is sort of like, they investigate it when the time comes and try to figure it out. There are 2 resources that are not amazing, but better than nothing. I'll put those in the chat. These are state resources, so if you ever need them, you can help track down. I mean, these are not an end all. But, you might click on those, do a little research, and find the people you need. The one that seems most helpful to me is the canal info. And so these are, if you hear that it's with so-and-so irrigation company, you can go and search that, find the company, and click on it and get all the contact information for all the people involved in that particular entity. Okay.
And Mike, really good resource as well as in the CE courses on the Berkshire Hathaway intranet site. If you scroll down, the ones that we offer for free, and then you click on the section below, which is the Real Estate Institute, there's a course on there, 3-hour course CE on water rights. Ooh. It's actually taught by a realtor who lives somewhere in central Utah, and her husband is the head of the what is it? The division of the state engineer who controls water rights. So she knows her stuff, and it's an amazing course. Highly recommend it. But the perfect scenario where people get in trouble is like in South Jordan. There's a lot of large properties, 1/3 acre, 1/2 acre, acre. The culinary water that services the house for drinking water is obviously included. That's what they use, but they didn't want to use treated water to water a half acre or an acre of grass or whatever. So that may come from a water share or water right from a local water provider. And oftentimes, if those aren't transferred correctly, you've got a buyer who, yes, has water in their house, but no way to water the yard. So ask those questions. There may be two sources of water for those large properties out there.
Yeah, that's that's the case. That's the case in my house. I have there's a lot of homes in Davis and Weber County that will have a secondary water for your lawn and whatnot. Yeah. Jim says, how would you recommend filling section 1.4 out? Leaving it blank can be an issue. 1.4, well, leaving it blank though, because the blank's purpose is to put what's excluded. And so if we're writing the offer, I would advise you to not exclude anything.
Right.
Yeah. Because it is a little confusing because, it specifically starts out and states water rights and shares are included. And then at the end, it says the following rights or water shares are specifically excluded. I've seen agents enter NA.
None.
Yeah.
We're not excluding any of them. And then they would have to come back and counter. Well, there are some water shares that we own that we can sell, but the water rights will transfer.
Yeah. Allison's iPhone says, water share is also a big deal on estates and holiday. Sellers often want to take them when they move.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a big deal. I think it's in the Intermountain West, in the entire West, it's a big deal. Water is always a big deal. And I know even deals that agents are working on in my office currently on large tracts of land. There are developers who are buying large tracts of land that not to develop the tract of land because the tracts of land have water rights to them that they want, water shares that they want to transfer to their developments. So
yeah, just to Allison's comment there too, in Holiday, there's a lot of properties which have the culinary water, and then they have the seller may also own a water share that has to run with the property because that's the source for irrigation for the property or for landscaping or whatever. The seller may own additional shares. They could sell those separately, but they can't take the one with them that actually says, pertinent to the property that has to run with the title on the property.
Yeah. Yeah, very good point. Yeah, and I think that's all that comes with market knowledge, right? I mean, people learn how to handle these issues and whatnot because they're in these markets where they encounter these issues frequently. And so some of us are much better than others. Let's just put it that way. Hey, it's 11:55. In 5 minutes, I will try to finish section 2. I don't know. Can we finish section 2 in 5 minutes? Tar asks, would water rights show up on a title report? It's a great question.
Maybe.
Tar. And that's, I know, isn't it? It's just a bizarre, that seems bizarre. It should be yes or no, but the answer is maybe.
Yeah.
The answer is maybe.
If in fact there is a fee that is necessary to be paid that runs with the title to a water company, it's probably going to show up there as an obligation that runs with the property. But a lot of times you just don't know. So you really rely on the seller to disclose that and make sure that your buyer has what they need to live there.
Yeah. And it's also important to note that, I gave you a link to the search for the irrigation companies and canal companies, right? Well, yeah. I don't know if any of these people are really getting paid to do this. I bet you 90% of them are all volunteer positions of people in the communities who need this water and they need it to operate. And so, yeah, their whole purpose is just to keep things going. They're not cleaning up paperwork items or any of that. They're just making sure that the water's flowing to the people it needs to flow to. And I think that's the case in a lot of them. And I know, like, even my dad, who lives in a residential neighborhood that's older, and all of these homes have an acre to them, and they have, you know, they're all part of a very small irrigation company for their property, and nobody wants to do it and deal with it. And people are forced to just so they can keep getting water. So that's probably the case in many places. So that's sort of what you're up against with this issue. And with that question, I think it answered my other question. We do not have time to enter section 2, which is purchase price and the breakdown of where all that money's coming from. That feels like it could be a big conversation in and of itself. And my memory does serve. The last time we went over the purchase contract, it did take, I think, at least 3 1-hour sessions to cover it all. So it looks like that's the direction we're heading. We'll go ahead and end it here unless you have any additional